do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
All of the time. All of the time, all of the time. Welcome to the Counter-Racist Soul Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And we are live this morning, April the 7th, 2020. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 516-453-9921. Let me repeat that again. 516-453-9921. You may ask Mr. Fuller any question that is on your mind, and he will make suggestions or answer your questions in a codified way. Now, if you don't know what that means, just hang on, and you will begin to understand what codification is all about. If you'd like to send me a Gmail that I may read with Mr. Fuller, you can. All you have to do is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and I will read it along with the others that I have here, possibly on today's show, because Mr. Fuller has a worldwide reach, so I get Gmails all of the time. But anyway, pardon me, this is how we will conduct the show. Okay, as usual, this is my custom. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
And how are you?
I'm still learning.
Okay, you're still learning. That never changes for those who are listening every time I ask Mr. Fuller, or even if you do, he will tell you the exact same thing, that he's still learning. Mr. Fuller, on last week's show, a caller called up concerning about the, I call it house arrest here in the concept called the United States, or particularly in the city that I live in, we're under house, or the state that I live in, we're under house arrest. Some think in prison, as you have often indicated and referred to the Shawshank Redemption as the lessons learned from that. But one of the things that you brought up, that since we are in this particular situation due to the coronavirus, as they call it, you said that while we're in this, that one thing that we could be doing, among other things, is doing some thinking. And I thought about that and talked with a few people in my research team about that. And the question came up, in this situation, what does Mr. Fuller suggest, since he suggested thinking? What are we to be thinking about? What kind of things are we to do, and why?
Well, we should think about what we are here for on the planet. Seriously think about it. And think about everything that we have been doing, even among ourselves. I mean, the things that we have made a priority. I mean, the places we'd like to go and the things we'd like to do. We need to reassess all of that. Go over it with a fine-tooth comb and ask ourselves, why do we want to go here and go there? Why do we want to make this and that and the other type of contact with other persons in order to achieve what? Ultimately, we should look around us and see about what are the things that we actually seek to get that just constitutes another item of clutter. Ask ourselves whether the things that we go to get are the things that we intend to get. are going to add to anything of constructive value in our being, in our comings and goings. And think of everything, like I said, divide everything, including all the things you're looking at, constructive, non-constructive. Does it serve a constructive purpose? And if so, what is that constructive purpose that whatever it is you're looking at or thinking about will produce? And everything that is non-constructive goes out the window. We should at least think about it, whether we do it or not. We should think about this is an excellent time while we're on lockdown to just make an assessment of all of the people that we usually contact and want to be around. Make an assessment as to when you're around this person, do constructive things happen? Does anything of constructive value happen? Or are there any things or list of things of non-constructive value that happen when you're around that person or those persons? Every time you're around them, when you walk away from them till you see them next time, it's something constructive happening while you are in their presence. And what is that constructive thing that's happening that you can really look back on 10 years, 20 years later and say, that was one of the most constructive events or series of events in my entire existence, out of everything I've ever done or every place I've ever been, when I was in contact with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, or when I went to this place or that place. That was the most constructive, one of the most constructive things, if not the most constructive things, that in my entire existence happened when I went to that place or those places.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of questions we should be asking ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And make an assessment and pick out those things that seem to be going in the most constructive direction and say, from now on, when this lockdown is over and I don't succumb to it, this is going to be the pattern of my entire existence from now on, ever. And I'm not going to deviate from it. And codify yourselves, like the code book says, that you can get by going to producejustice.com. Codify everything. This is an excellent time to do it. Just sit down and make a list of all the do's and don'ts that you are going to make for yourself from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent time to do it.
All righty. Thank you for the listeners who are listening in. I can look at my screen and see worldwide people are listening in, so thank you. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., also called the CRCS. And if you would like to speak directly to Mr. Fuller, you can do so by calling 516-453-9921. And when you call that number, hit the number 1 button, and my producers and engineers have told me that when you do, you will go to the head of the line, or you are the next caller in line, provided that Mr. Fuller is not answering someone else's question. And as you know, or those who are with the show all the time knows that Mr. Fuller is very thorough in giving his answers to your question, and he will do that with everybody. Be very thorough, leaving no stone unturned. He will answer your questions. And if you'd like, you can Gmail me at numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And one more thing, I was told by my producers that there might be some static in hearing it. Mr. Fuller, myself, and my producers, we all are in different locations. I think you call that remote, and therefore sometimes due to technical problems, this may happen, but we apologize if you are not getting the program clearly. Okay, let's go to the Gmails, and here we go. One with Malesala G, if I pronounced it right. Here's your question, Mr. Fuller, or the question. Greetings, Mr. Malesa G. Okay, greetings. Given the COVID-19 global pandemic and the global pandemic response, Mr. Fuller, is it accurate to state that the primary way to make whites is to present a threat to the global system of white supremacy and ultimately to themselves globally? Sincerely, Mr. Malesala G.
Sure. The system of racism should always be threatened. It should always be under siege. It should always be really eliminated because it never should have been in the first place. We shouldn't have a world government based on mistreatment of people based on color or mistreatment of people based on anything. I don't care what kind of system it is. If anybody's going to be mistreated, that system needs to be scrapped immediately because it never should have existed in the first place. So someone invented something called racism in the form of white supremacy. It turned out to be the most powerful political and religious concept put into practice in recorded history. No religion, no political system has ever been in recorded history superior to the concept and the practice of the system of white supremacy, which is designed to do two things: dominate, that's number one, and mistreat people who have color in their skin, deliberately designed to do that. And what do the people who practice this system get out of it? Because people do things to get something out of something. Everybody likes to gain something. Animals like to gain something when they make any kind of move at all. Birds, ants, they want to gain something. So what do the white supremacists gain from dominating and mistreating people because they have color in their skin? They get three things that all people want: fun, glory, and material comfort. And they get it in abundance. Now, there's other ways to get that, theoretically anyway, particularly the ones that are recommended in the textbook for victims of racism. The goal should be to replace that system of racism in order to get what? Fun, glory, and material comfort, but through another system, and that is the system of justice. If you're going to replace the system of white supremacy, you got to replace it with something better. Otherwise, you might as well keep what you got. It's a very productive system, material-wise, the most productive system ever in recorded history. The system of white supremacy is the most efficient and productive system in recorded history for getting things done in the most efficient manner. But the problem is it leaves millions of people dead or distraught or in terrible shape. Monsters and monstrosities is what it turns non-white people into. That's what we have become, monsters and monstrosities. Monsters are people who just go around just breaking things and killing people and just wild-eyed and acting crazy, and that's what they have made black people, the system of white supremacy. That's one thing. And the rest of us who don't go around killing people and breaking things, we do other things that puts us in the category of being, like the textbook says, monstrosities, meaning we act weird. Our interactions with each other, even our culture that we brag about, is just strange, and not only strange, but non-constructive, nothing constructive that you find in what black culture is, in essence. I'm talking about not theoretical black culture, not some type of paradise black culture that you dream about. I'm talking about what black people actually do, because that's
Yes,
all
sir.
culture is, what you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Now, so
All
far,
right.
did I answer the question, or did I?
Well, do you think you answered the question?
I think so. I think
well,
so.
then that's good enough.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
Mhm.
Second part of that question is this: has the cloth mask become a new symbol of solidarity?
Well, I don't know. I don't see very many people walking around with the cloth mask
Neither
where
do
I
I.
am. So, it, and what we mean by solidarity, does that bring us together and to make us act more civilized than we do? Because we have never done that. We have never been, had any civility, even the stuff that we call civility. That shouldn't come. That doesn't come anywhere close to real civility. I mean, the very best interactions we have between the people on this planet has never come anywhere in the neighborhood close to real civility. I mean, and that's when we are doing our very best. I mean, the handshaking and the back patting and the hugging and the kind language and whatnot. It's all a mask under this system. It's all a mask. We're just actors. And the acting is very poor. It really is. Some of it is better than others. But overall, if you're going to give it a score, it's poor, 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 poor across the board. Why? Because it's in a bogus system. That's why. It's in an uncivilized system, which is the system of racism, which dominates and influences everybody on the planet to the max. Mistreating people based on color. That's a poor system, very poor. Rich in producing material things, but poor in relationships. Absolute disaster. And bringing us together behind this virus and whatnot in a constructive manner, because we've always been together. That slogan we love to use. We got to come together, folks. We just got to come together. Come together and do what? We never add on to that. Come together and do what? Do we go into some these specific things that we should do 24/7 when we so-called, quote, unquote, come together? Otherwise, it just comes really to some kind of sexual expression, I guess. Come together.
Yes. Okay.
Doesn't go any further than that.
Okay. Again, calling in 516-453-9921, and make sure you hit the number 1 button and you'll go right up to the line. And thank you for those who are online around the world. I'm looking at the numbers. Very good. Okay. This is from Victor Palmer from Canada, and I do have permission to use his name. He says this: Mr. Fuller, on page 66, now I'm going to do a bad thing. I'm going to assume that he's talking about the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, the revised expanded edition. He didn't specify, but I'm going to think that he did. He says this: Mr. Fuller, how can victims of white supremacy codify everything they say and do if racist man and racist woman, white supremacists, collectively decide to continually mistreat and subjugate us all based on our color by committing all kinds of physical and mental harm to our minds and bodies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop? How can a codified counter-racist individual continually allow emotions to lead them to constructive logic through all of that consistent psychological and physical abuse?
By all use of the mind. You focus. For one thing, the brain has to focus on mission. And now if you're talking about emotions, we all have emotions, and emotions serve a purpose. But you are supposed to guide your emotions toward the purpose that you're supposed to achieve. And that's based on a thing called logic. If you have something that needs correcting, and you're supposed to be correcting it, what you do is have focus on correcting the things that need correcting. And stick with it. You have to have persistence. That's how you do it. How do you get persistence? By staying focused. And how do you get focused? How do you stay focused? By not paying attention to everything else. That's what focus is. Focus is weeding out a whole bunch of other things where your mind is wandering here and there and all over the place. And if you get thinking about how someone feels about you rather than what to do about what they are doing about you, and what they are doing is non-constructive, then your focus is going to be on their feelings. So therefore, you're going to use your feelings to try to deal with the situation by responding to their feelings in a trivial way. Whereas if you have a code, you just lock onto the code and say, these are things I'm going to say at all times. That's what a code is for, to keep you focused. These are the things, when this happens and this happens and this happens, I'm going to just simply say, like a machine, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say the other, because everything is speech and action. And then if something calls for action, you just say, when this person does this and does that, I'm going to see what the code says, or the code that I came up with myself, because everybody's supposed to be in the process of inventing code. And you just come up with a list of things to do for every situation and do them and stay focused on doing them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you focus on a whole bunch of other things. You focus on having, people say, well, how do you do that? That's so difficult. Well, you do it just by doing it. Like putting gas in the car. You know you're not going anywhere. Your logic tells you that. You got no gas in the engine, and that engine is constructed you have to put gas in it in order for the engine to run. That's the nature of the engine. That's how it's structured. Now, you can sit there and cry about it or moan about it or do whatever, but that car is not going to move until you put gas in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple.
Yes,
it's something you have to do. You say, well, that's not how I feel about it. The engine in the car doesn't care how you feel. Well, I want the engine to care. Now, that's where we make our mistake. Our emotions start bouncing all over the place rather than staying focused on doing and saying. Just pick up the nozzle, please. Take the gas cap off. Put the nozzle in where it's supposed to go, in the tank, and pull the lever or push it or whatever. Put your gas in the tank and get in the car and go. G-O. Because that's what makes it go. Rather than stand there all day saying, well, the car needs gas, but I don't feel like the car ought to need gas. Why don't they make a car that don't run on gas? Why don't they make a car that just runs on air? I don't feel like this is right. Don't be that way, because too many of us are that way about everything. Deal with what is and be logical.
Mm-hmm. On that subject, focus, I was viewing a now canceled television drama called Ballers, which was on HBO, and a character by the name of Charles, who was one of 32 people who was the president of an exclusive sports franchise, was in his office, and a bodyguard or whatever came in, and Charles asked him, he said, why do you do what you do for me? And the bodyguard said, Charles, I will crawl up a snake's ass to get a mouse to get you what you need. Hearing a statement like that, Mr. Fuller, would that, in your opinion, be an example of somebody being focused?
Well, I guess so, if they do it.
Yeah, and he did it.
Anytime you deliberately do anything and do it successfully, it means you're focused. When you're trying to do something and you're not doing it successfully, it means the way you're going about doing it is in error. It's not logical, or you're not focused. But I've seen people, I don't know whether it was real or not, but it seemed real, people who can break bricks with their hands.
Yes.
Now, I have asked, how can a person do that? Because I have hands. I can't do that. They say, for one thing, you practice it. And one thing you have to have when you practice doing it, and you keep doing it and keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger so that you can chop a brick in half with your hands, you better stay focused.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, you're going to hurt your hand. See, if you're focused, if you're determined that that's what you're going to do, every time you do it, you have to be focused on doing it. You can't be skittish. If you start having doubts in midair when your hand comes down, that's what I've been told, you will actually hurt yourself. You'll break your hand. But if you're focused, you'll break the brick. Codification means just that type of focus.
Okay. Well, this bodyguard was definitely focused if he's going to go to that extreme to get a mouse. That's deep. Let's see here. Tony from Memphis, I'm not going to get you until after we break because I don't want to stop it, which is about a minute and a half, and then I will come to you, Tony. So you're going to be next up in line. For all others, you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. As Tony is on the line, there are others who may want to call in, and you can do so by calling 516-453-9921. Let me repeat that again slowly. 516-453-9921. And then make sure you hit the number 1 button and you will go to the top of the line, but you would be after Tony from Mississippi. And then you can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com, and I will read them as I just did Victor Palmer's Gmail from Canada. Okay, we're getting ready to go to our break because I hear the music, and that means this. Again, you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., also called the CRCS. And it's all at producejustice.com, which in about 15 minutes, Mr. Fuller will speak to going to that site where you can pick up the book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. All that information and more is all on that site, so make sure you do that. Again, the Counter Racist Code Show, CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. 516-453-9921 is the number to call. Okay, let me do this. Tony from Memphis. Let's see if I can get him on here. Already from Mississippi. Why do I keep Memphis on my mind? I don't know. Maybe I need to go to Memphis. But anyway, excuse me, Tony, from Mississippi. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Brown, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
I was just wondering what made Mr. Fuller come up with the idea of VGQ. I think that's brilliant, as I noticed that black folks, we really argue about pretty much everything. Like you said, religion, the conscious community goes back and forth in arguments. I mean, I just feel like that was absolutely brilliant, and I would like to know what brought him to create that idea. I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Tony, from Mississippi. Mr. Fuller, VGQ, how did you come up with that?
Came up with it out of observation. See, first thing in codification is to observe. You won't see things right away, but you just watch what people do. Very simple. It's not complicated at all. I'm not a genius. I mean, I don't invent anything. I just look at what's going on right in front of me and stay focused. I pay attention. So I started noticing that. People would come on the radio or go on television, and black people just in the pool hall and the barber shop, and black people just at parties and whatnot, just have a tendency to, start arguments, and I would look back. I would look at the arguments, staying focused, and say, how did this start? And then I would go back and look at all the details, how everybody started off laughing and talking and backslapping and hugging, and then it wound up being an argument when they start talking. After they start talking, that's all we have to do. You get a bunch of black people together, all we have to do is just start talking, because we talk, all right? Oh, we talk and we talk and we talk. Okay, but somewhere along the way, if you listen very carefully to everything that everybody is saying, find that somebody will say, well, I don't want to offend you or nothing like that, but I don't agree with that. I just don't agree with that. And you'll be laughing while you're saying it. Mm-hmm. And then somehow, in the next 5 minutes or 15 minutes or half an hour, that laughter turns into some type of mild hostility. And in another 15 minutes, it might come to threats, okay? And I've seen that type of thing escalate over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I ask myself, how does this happen? And that's how I came up with the idea of VGQ. That when you're at least talking about racism, okay, and really anything else, you just say, well, I'm going to give my opinion. And everybody should say, well, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. And that's VGQ, basically. You just, you don't say, you say, well, I'm not qualified to disagree with you. I'm just listening to your opinion. And then if you ask me mine, I'll give mine. And then you have given yours, and I've given mine. That's the essence of victims' guaranteed qualification. Every victim of racism is totally qualified, VGQ. That's why I say victims' guaranteed qualification. Every victim of racism is totally qualified to say anything that he or she chooses to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism. Counter-racism means against racism. Anything that you choose to say is valid as far as the listener is concerned. And that way, everybody can say what they want to say, and no hostility is there at all. That's why right here on this program, anybody can disagree with anything and tell me why they're disagreeing, or don't tell me why they're disagreeing. Just say, I disagree with it, and I ain't going to tell you why I disagree with it, Fuller. but you're all wet on that one. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm
not going to tell you why I disagree with you, but you all wet on this.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, they can say what they want to say because we're talking about race, all right? And nobody has solved the race problem, so I can't disagree with anybody. I don't care who it is.
But if they don't tell you...
There's a lot of things that when I hear it, I mean, I kind of look up the ceiling and all like that. But I'm not qualified to disagree with that person.
Okay,
and
I
those
understand.
things I shouldn't.
Okay, I understand that.
Everybody should say what they have to say. And then sit down. Just leave it alone.
But how is
Go
that
ahead.
logical? How is that logical, though?
It's logical.
If they don't tell you why, they say, I don't agree with you, Fuller, but I'm not going to tell you why. I mean, how is that logical in a compensatory way?
It's logical in a compensatory way because it doesn't bring about conflict. The one thing you don't want between the prisoners of war is conflict of any kind if you can avoid it, if it's possible. And it's real easy to avoid that conflict, simply by letting everybody express their opinion.
Okay.
And you don't say anything to try to overrule it. Don't be a judge. Just say, well, I've heard what you have to say. Now may I say what I have to say? And then you say what you have to say. And then you pass the mic to the next person and the next person, and everybody says what they have to say. And the code says, think about what the person says and see if you can use it. That's the VGQ way.
Okay.
It doesn't get no better than that.
All right.
I mean, I've put that to use, and every time I've seen people put it to use, one thing that you don't have that conflict between prisoners, which, logically speaking, doesn't mean anything anyway when we have that conflict. The prisoners start fighting in the prison yard because they disagree with each other about the marble game and the rules of the marble game. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? All of them going to get, the prison masters are going to come down there and break up the riot and then shuffle them all back to the prison cell. So what have they actually gained by having that riot among themselves because they disagree with each other about a marble game? But that's black people.
All right.
We disagree with each other about millions of things. And what does it get us? Nothing.
Nothing.
But sent right back to the cells and business as usual.
All right, point well taken. All right, let's go to Glenn from PG County, Maryland. Glenn, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question? Let me see if I can get you over here. Okay, there you go.
Good morning, Mr.
Right.
Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Bobby, and good morning, Mr. Fuller. I hope you both are well. My question involves, Mr. Fuller, you write in the code that racism is unbalance between people. Racist man and racist women have produced an unbalanced situation. And in order for us to write this, we have to have justice. So I wonder, like on page 258 of the code, you say no robbing nor stealing helps to produce justice. Yet if racist man and racist women have stolen from us, which they have, if we take it back from them, wouldn't that get things more in balance? Wouldn't that make for more of a system of justice?
No, we don't rob and steal. I mean, what we do is try to produce justice, which means getting the things that you're due, and you ask for them. Okay, that's the way to do it. I mean, eventually, that's what the white people are going, the way that we want them to do it, and they give it to us eventually. But we don't rob and steal. Now, we might fight. Okay, and it might come to some killing, which is comes under war. But as far as crawling around in the middle of the night like we do, we got a reputation for that. Stealing the refrigerator off the warehouse dock, when nobody's looking, put it in the truck and take off down the street. Black people should get rid of that reputation. I mean, like right now, if not way before. No more robbing. We shouldn't be robbers. We don't, that's what the white supremacists do, yes, but we don't copy them. We don't want a world based on robbery. They believe in that. The white supremacists believe in robbing. They steal and rob everything, whole continents of people. Robbery, theft. They glorify it. All right, that's a part of their glory. That second thing that they like, robbing and stealing, and different ways of robbing and stealing. And we pick it up and do it on a junior league level, because you can never rob and steal enough to sustain yourself. So that's not even logical. I mean, snatching something off of a counter in a drugstore or a grocery store and running down the street. And you got, and dropping half the groceries and whatnot on the ground on the way. And then the chase is on, and they love that, all right, like fox hunting. That's all it is to them. And but the black person doing it, we don't do nothing like that. When something is stolen right now, anywhere in the world, and the investigators come around, everyone should be saying, almost in unison, well, there's one thing we know for sure. No black person did this. No black person broke in Miss Jones' house and stole her purse. No black person did that. Why? Because that's a part of their code. They'll ask you for things. They'll beg you. They'll beg you and beg you and beg you, but they're not going to steal. Now, if they get mad enough, if they don't get it, they will come in broad daylight in front of everybody, because they ain't hiding. And whatever they are after, they're not going to rob you of it. They're not going to take your things. They will not take your things away from you. Black people won't do that. They won't take nobody's things away from them. They'll ask you. But now, if they reach a breaking point, they still, and this is in the textbook, they still won't rob from you the things that they want, or steal from you the things that they want. They will not take your things away from you under any circumstance, but they will take you away from your things. That's a different ball game altogether.
Mm-hmm.
What
All
does
right,
that
sir.
mean?
I'm gonna come next time I come around. This is what you're saying to yourself, according to the code. I ain't gonna rob you. I ain't gonna steal from you, because that is absolutely against the code. But
Well, what does that mean when you said? Excuse me, when you said that they will take you away from your things, but they won't take your things away from you? I wasn't quite clear on that.
That is quite clear in the code. Black people, before they rob and steal a sandwich, they won't take your sandwich away from you. They're not going to even take the sandwich away from you after they do what they're going to do, which is what? In answer to your question, what are they going to do? They're not going to rob you. They're not going to steal from you. They don't take your things away from you. They take you away from those things. See? That's how that's done. And to show how sincere they are, they go with you. Now, what does that mean? It means at least one dead white person and one dead black person. That's the calculation in that equation, according to the code. Nothing less.
Wow.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Hey, Glenn, thank you, from Prince George County, Maryland. Is that what that is? All right.
Yes, it
Thank
is.
you so much. Thank you so much for your call, my brother. Okay, why don't we cue that music up and let me... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Don't cue that music up. Mr. Fuller, this is the time, and especially since Glenn kind of hinted to it, that we bring up the information about your book, the name of it, and where we can get it and all the latest information that you have for the people. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
ProduceJustice.com. That's the website that you go to. And what will come up on the screen, I haven't checked it lately myself, but I understand what's up there is the textbook workbook for victims of white supremacy under the major title of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which is what the book is based on. United Independent, meaning what? Alone together. That term that somebody else has invented. I mean, it's
sure
going
have.
around with this virus now. All right? That's the United Independent concept at work right there. In other words, you're in unison, hopefully, with everybody who is trying to get rid of something that's really harming everybody, a virus. You're in unity about that, but you're alone while you do it, because the only way that you can do it is to be alone. Because if you get together, as black people just love to use that term, we got to get together with our brothers and sisters. That's how we say it with the microphone. Got to be dramatic, all right? But the code says no all the time. How can you function alone and at the same time be on the same page? Because that's what's happening now. We're on the same page of what you do about a virus. Codification, and the whole textbook is about how you function as one person without consulting anybody, including Neely Fuller. You don't consult Neely Fuller. What does he know? You consult the logic that's in the universe. Follow the logic. Don't follow anybody except logic. The creator of you gave you the ability to use a thing called logic, meaning figuring things out. By doing what? Just by looking at what's going on and figuring out what's the best way out of millions of ways to handle this particular situation. That's all a code is. The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And you do this as an individual person. When? Every day, all day. When anything comes up, the first thing that should hit your mind is, now out of millions of things that I can say, or millions of things that I can do, what is the very best thing that anybody can say about this situation, regardless of what the situation is, and what is the very best thing, considering the circumstances as they are, that anybody in a million years can do. And that's what you try to lock on to. Now, that calls for some what? Thinking.
We should start the program off with that, thinking.
Oh, thinking, yes. And the subtitle of the supplementary title of the book. First thing, thought, then speech before you speak every time. You just say, well, I didn't intend to say that. Well, you didn't intend to say that. Well, you should have thought about it before you said it. That's how they get black people in court. Well, that ain't the way I meant it. Well, wait a minute. You should have thought about thinking about the best way to say it so that it comes out the way that you wanted it to do. Don't be so fast to respond. Period. Slow down. That's one thing a lot of black people learn the hard way because they've never been in a situation where they've been in court. One of the first things I noticed the first time I went to a court as a witness or something or another was how slow everything was. I mean, people just sitting around quiet, clearing their throats. That's the only sound you hear. Nobody's saying nothing. And then finally the judge will say something or the witness will say something. And then everything is just slow. And then the judge, at the end of the day, might say, well, we're going to continue this tomorrow. I need everybody back here. And people start moaning and groaning and filing out. But why? They say, hey, when you slow down, you don't miss nothing. And see, and we're not going to miss anything. We're going to go over everything, every word with a fine-tooth comb. For the first time, see, black people are used to having, under the whip, having to move. Move, boy. I crack this whip. I'm going to pop this whip across your back. I mean, you get moving, So we just in a frenzy all the time. And then we get around each other, always in a frenzy. Talking fast, all right? Slobbering at the mouth. I mean, it's cursing, fuming. Just slow down. Observe things. Pay attention to detail of everything going on around you and ask questions. And that's what the book is about. Teaching us, and I used the incorrect term right there. The textbook for victims of racism is not a teaching book. And it doesn't teach, it just tells. It makes suggestions.
Suggestions, yes.
That's all. It's just a book of suggestions about what to do and say under certain circumstances or specific circumstances. And just as a guide. And you can accept it or reject it. And I tell people when they read the book, just turn to any page and see if you see anything that you can use for that day. It might be one or two things, maybe nothing there. All right? Well, just close the book. Come back and look at it again some other time. And,
yes, sir.
And the textbook for victims of racism, you can get it by going to producejustice.com, and that includes the word guide, too, if you want that.
Okay. Before we get off of that, I think you were aware of that, but as I write stuff down as we go along, and it is on the front of the textbook here, Revised Expanded Edition. It says at the end of the page, it says a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. Then you have white supremacy. And as I was writing, I looked at that. And that in itself, Mr. Fuller, and I'm asking on purpose, thought, speech, and action actually follows a code which leads to logic. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. Thought, you think, then you speak, then you act, but your thinking was based on what? Logic. And what is logic? Cause and effect. In other words, before you say it, you already know that it's going to have the most constructive effect. Otherwise, you ain't got no business saying it. All right? That's why we should think about. We should think about. Yes, we should. That's a code right there. You should think about everything that you're going to say, word for word, before you say it. I got in the habit of doing that myself. When I would go to meetings.
Yes, sir.
I codified myself to do this. Try to be as near as possible the last person to speak. That way you listen to everybody else before you, rather than jump right in. Some people want to take the floor and use the whole floor the whole time they're there. All right?
Yes.
No, that's not the codified manner. Codified manner is to find out where everybody's mind in that place is, who has something to say.
Yes.
And listen very carefully to what everybody is saying. Take notes on what everybody is saying. And then if you see something that you want to suggest based on what everybody else has already said, then you suggest something that you think is better than what everybody else said put together. All right? And that really takes some paying attention. Say something better. Now, if you don't have anything better to say than what all the other people said put together, then don't say nothing. So I've left a lot of meetings because I couldn't think of anything,
Yes, sir.
Sometimes I think of it later, but at that meeting, I've left, and people will ask me, say, Fuller, you usually have a lot to say, man, and, your book got a lot of stuff in it, man. You sat there that whole 2 hours. You never said not one word. And I said I didn't have anything to say that would improve on everything that was already said.
Yes, sir.
I said I have to think about what everybody said, and and the meeting only lasted an hour, and during that hour I couldn't think about nothing better, so I wasn't going to talk just to be talking. Black people got to get out of that. That should not be a part of our code at all. Talk just to be talking, just to let everybody know I was here, because too many of us do that.
Okay.
I want to be recognized. Be recognized for what? Because I'm here.
Okay.
That's not logical.
It's not logical. It's not at all. In the remaining 4.5 minutes that we have here, I got a little note here from the person that runs the Black Liberty Institute. This is by Gmail, by the name of Barbara. She says this, Mr. Fuller, I started hearing your program tonight, even though I've been listening for years. I would like to ask Mr. Fuller, do you think what I'm doing in my individual lane, educating people on world history, which is black history, and writing black stories, is that producing justice? Thank you for your thoughts.
My answer is I don't know, because I don't know what effect she's having on how people think and what they are doing with what they learn. See, the whole purpose for talking to people is to have something happen after you talk that hasn't happened before you talked, that has a constructive effect. So the only measure of that is the people who are listening to the lady go out and do something constructive, which usually means problem solving, as a result of what they heard. What black people should be about, in 2 words, is constructive activity. And what is constructive activity? Because a lot of people have asked that. Sometimes I haven't answered either. But constructive activity is problem solving. Black people should be problem solvers. We have a reputation worldwide for being what? Problem makers. And we wonder why people don't want to be around us. We don't want to be around us. We're fleeing each other all over the world. After running to each other and doing all the hugging and high-fiving, which we do a lot of, then we run from each other as the pistol shots ring out. And that's happening even as we speak right now. Black people in boats, all over the world I'm talking about, trying to cross angry oceans, you might say. Boat almost sinking, got the babies in their arms, crying and wailing and starving. What are they doing out there on those boats? Trying to get away from other black people. Truth be told. Get away from other black people and go where? Well, what do they say they're going? Which way did the white people go? That's their question. Because wherever the white people are, somebody is acting like they got some sense. Because I can't stand being around us. Because we don't act like we got no sense. That's really what we're telling the whole world just by our movements. We don't put it in words, but that's what it means. And there's a reason for that. It's because we don't have a code for minimizing conflict among ourselves, fighting about absolutely nothing when it comes right down to it, and not having a code for problem solving.
All righty. Well,
black people, when we interact with each other, should be about those 2 words.
Okay.
Problem solving. Are we solving a problem, or are we making one? Because we're making one. I'm out of here.
Okay. Speaking about being out of here, we're out of here for the first hour as the music is coming on. So we thank you for listening to the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller and me as your co-host, Mr. Bobby. So stay tuned for the second hour of the CRCS. We're going to talk about relationships. All that and more coming up next on the Counter Racist Code Show with Neely Fuller Jr. All righty. Welcome to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 516-453-9921. Let me do that real slowly. 516-453-9921 to get in contact with the show. Push the number 1 button, and I am told by my producers and engineers who look out for Mr. Fuller and myself that you will go to the number 1 position, provided that Mr. Fuller is not answering someone else's question, and you'll be right in there. Also, if you just like to just write in your question, you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and I will hopefully get a chance to read your question. If I don't read your question today, it will go into the list, or on the list, and it will be read. Okay, Counter Racist Code Show, hour number 2 with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's go here. Okay. All right, this question comes from a long-time listener, Brother Tehran. It's 3 questions, but it's going to be made into one, Mr. Fuller, and you can step in at any part. But it's about relationships. He says, these questions relate to having a care mate and applying the code for the best outcome in the relationship. Number 1, Mr. Fuller, what constitutes a constructive relationship? Number 2, and what is the best way to handle conflict in a relationship to minimize hurt and pain? And number 3, aside from physical violence, are there other actions in the relationship that means the 2 persons should never be in a relationship again? Thank you very much.
Well, it depends on what they agree on in the beginning. See, black people should be slow to get into what they call relationships, okay? And I don't know whether he's talking about male with female or what.
Okay, let's go to the first question. He says, what constitutes a constructive relationship?
Constructive results. That's the answer to that question. In other words, are you doing things that produce constructive results? And a constructive result is problem solving. How do you function in such a way that when you're around each other, problems are solved? That's it. I mean, problems are solved of what kind? Okay, you got 9 areas of activity. Economics, the use of time and energy. Are you solving a problem when you use your time and energy in the presence of each other? Are you solving problems? Are you getting something done that has a constructive result? That's what it's supposed to be in economics. If it's under education, are you learning anything from that person that's of constructive value? When the person is talking, are you learning anything? Or are you able to convey something to that other person where that other person has learned something of constructive value? See, the code is very specific, not broad. See, we've been broad about everything, and that's why we don't get anything done.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, excuse me. He says...
So you go right through all the 9 areas. Education, entertainment. Okay, you are with a person, with, whatever that means, in their presence.
Okay.
The way that we entertain each other, is that constructive?
Okay.
It's what we are doing. They say, well, what are we doing? Let's just look at it specifically as an example. Well, we're sitting there taking, handing each other bottle, and we got a couple of glasses there, and we pouring each other some vodka. And we drinking straight vodka. Now, the question is raised, is this constructive? That's all. See, it's not complicated at all. Is this going to produce a constructive result? Not the two ways to go, constructive, non-constructive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pouring you a glass of vodka, and then you reach over and get the bottle and you pour me a glass when my glass is empty. And that's what we are doing. We are relating. See what I mean? Now, the code calls it quality relationship. So the question is this a quality relationship? Well, how do you tell a quality relationship from a non-quality relationship? By the result.
Mm-hmm.
So
by the way, he said
we've been sitting here since 9 o'clock.
Yes.
All right. And here it is, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and all we've been doing is sitting there talking and pouring vodka. Now,
Okay.
is that going to produce a constructive result? Yes or no? The record will show, I think, if you do that all day, the result is going to be non-constructive.
Okay.
See, everything in constructive and non-constructive becomes self-evident. You're going to have two sick people or two dead people, maybe. Whatever.
By the way, he's saying male with female. Wait a minute. He says, male with female relationship, to be specific, since you asked.
Oh, okay. Well, it depends on what area you're talking about. Are you talking about economics? You're all sitting there in the booth, the cafe booth, and you're talking about jobs and all like that? Okay. Well, is it constructive? Are you talking about getting a job where the job itself is going to be of constructive value for someone? And if it's going to be non-constructive, who is it going to be non-constructive for? And talk about that and try to iron out, is there going to be a problem there? Now, if it's male with female, you get the sexual thing straight first. And according to the code, it's about 175 questions, if not more. I forgot to count the number, or I don't remember what the count was.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about 150 at least, I think, questions.
Oh, yeah, 200
should be
questions.
asked and answered.
Yeah, 200
under
questions.
sex.
Mm-hmm.
Before you engage in what? Any type of sexual activity, like sexual intercourse and or sexual play. All of those questions should be asked and answered, and or answered, if you agree to do so. Before what? Before you come anywhere near that bedroom where you have what they call sexual intercourse and or serious sexual play.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning you have your clothes off, all right? And sexual intercourse and sexual play. Naked, all right?
Okay.
It's about over 100 questions
yes.
that should be asked and answered before you come anywhere near the bedroom, all right? And that should be standard codification for black people worldwide, so that you eliminate what? You eliminate all misunderstanding.
Oh, okay. Well, let's slide into this one then. He says, to since you did the first two, he says this: aside from physical violence, are there other actions? Yeah, he said aside from physical violence, are there other actions in the relationship that means the two persons should never be in a relationship again?
Oh, no. It's just a physical violence. See, that's why I say first time, last time.
Oh, okay.
If that male hits that female, because usually it's the male hitting the female.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the way that usually works. But that should be unheard of among black people, say, for example, throughout the world, as of this minute. As of this minute, you should make that a part of the code. First time, last time, meaning what? The first time he hits you, lady, that's the last time he's going to do that.
Well, what if she hits him?
Huh?
Is it
well,
the same if she hits him?
Yeah, well, he is usually the male is the stronger one in most scenarios. So the male gets away from the aggression, and then he declares from then on that depending, and it's all optional, like everything in the code book. But I'm saying basically, if it's that type of violence where females wind up with teeth knocked out. In fact, there's an old blues song that came out in the 1940s saying, "I'm taking you to the dentist in the morning, baby. Boom, 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 boom. 'Cause I'm knocking out your teeth tonight. Boom, 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 boom." Now, what kind of song is that? See, we send messages through our art. And a whole lot of our art sends signals that nobody should pick up on, truth be told.
Yeah.
All right? I'm going, in other words, everything is all right now, baby. I mean, I knocked out your teeth last night, so I'm taking you to the dentist, and I'm going to get you a pretty new set of teeth. All right? Ain't that nice? And then next week I might knock them out. All right? That's a part of the black pattern. Okay? That should not ever be and never should have been. Here's the black male hitting a black female that give birth to your offspring and all like that. That should be absolutely unheard of. The white masters, both male and female, racist man and racist woman, got both of you under the lash. That's one of the first things they did is whip you. Whip you all the way to the ship. And even after you got on the ship, just whip you while you're chained because you got sassy or whatnot. All right? That's the word they use. All the way across an ocean and then getting off the boat, going down the gangplank, chained together, naked, hungry, ragged. I mean, looking awful, being whipped all the way down the gangplank and then put up on an auction block and being whipped while you're being sold. And then you get down there in the slave shack and say, "What you talking back to me for?" And then you hit her and knock her teeth out. Now, we're still doing that foolishness. We're carrying on the slave master's pattern. Stop it right now. That ain't supposed to happen ever. In fact, among black people say, hey, one thing black males don't do. One thing they don't do. I don't care how mad they are. I don't care if she did stay out all night. Now, they'll get rid of her by saying, hey, I'm getting out of here. I'm leaving. Or what? Or you leaving because this thing is over. All right, that's how you do that. But as far as hitting, try to bring somebody else in line, no. That's absolutely out of the question. That ain't going to happen. As of this minute, everywhere, all over the world, Nigeria, Mali, Boston, Massachusetts, San Francisco, Montgomery, Alabama, no male should have no kind of instance where he hits that black female except in direct self-defense. That's what it's got to be. And it's got to be crucial. In other words, he couldn't get away. Like he's sitting there eating breakfast, and she comes out of the kitchen swinging an axe. Well, now he's got to defend himself against that because that's serious aggression. All right? But beyond that, it doesn't go in beyond that. And that also means this relationship is over when it gets that serious because you shouldn't want anybody, male or female, that you have to hit. All right? But if he hits the female, this is for females now, chances are you got 3 kids here, 3 children, 3 offspring. You can't leave. You can leave and go where? You know that. But it should be understood. He hit you with his fist, knocked you halfway across the living room. All right? That is an announcement according to the code. That was the first time it ever happened. Now, he said he was sorry and all like that. But according to the code, sorry won't cut it. this relationship is over. Now, that's got to be understood before it ever happens. One time, first time, last time. That's got to be like the slogan and the substance of codification when it comes to a relationship. That is the one thing that does not happen between black males and black females, non-white males, non-white females. White men may do it and all like that. We don't copy that. We don't copy that. We don't hit that female. We say, hey, you know, even if he starts thinking that he's got to do that, to so-called keep her in line, then his announcement should be, you know what, I keep wanting to hit you, and it's all I can do to keep from doing it. So I think that what we better do, you get somebody who don't want to hit you, and I get somebody that I don't want to hit.
Okay. Before we move off of that, Mr. Fuller, he asked this. He says, ask Mr. Fuller if the first time, last time applies to infidelity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I said those questions. See, if you look at those questions in the textbook, a lot of them, I mean, for questions you never, ask nobody and never want anybody to ask you. Because, see, before you get in that bed the first time to have sexual intercourse, one thing that you are going to know is that the whole sexual history and other history of that person is supposed to be known to the other person. Your entire history before you ever get in that bedroom with nothing left out. You're supposed to tell in detail everything you've ever done in bed with everybody.
What?
All right? It's in the book. If you don't believe it, look under sex. See, some people just got the book, and they haven't looked at the book. All right? You go to that sex section, the area of activity, the 8th area of activity, next to the 9th, which is war, all right? And next to the 7th, which is religion, and you got sex. Sex is powerful. You want to get everything straight in everybody's mind about everything dealing with sex so that you always know exactly, without having to scratch your head or guess about nothing, who you're in bed with. That should be the new black code because, hey, we got 5 questions, what's your sign? Where do you work? Do you have a job? Are you married? Now we're ready for bed. That's too quick, folks. That's too quick. That's why we have all these problems we have now, because it comes from 3 words in relationships when it comes to sex between black people, black males, and black females. What are those 3 words? I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know you were like that. I didn't know that you were a woman chaser. I didn't know that, I couldn't trust you, to go out at night and come back without getting in bed with somebody. I didn't know. No, you knew all of that because that was taken care of before y'all ever got in that bed in the first place.
Or I didn't know that you used to be a man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of the questions are, is it some circumstances, conceivable circumstances, where you just might get with somebody else and have sex with them if we are married? That's supposed to be asked and answered before you ever get in that bed the first time.
Mm-hmm.
When you're so-called courting. That's just one of the questions, and that's a mild one. There are questions there about all the details. Have you ever had sexual intercourse with a white person? That's one of the questions in there, because that's not a question that's usually thought of.
Yeah.
How many white persons? When? Where? Under what circumstances?
That sounds like a book within a book. Whew.
It's in the textbook for victims of white supremacy under the 8th area. Those questions are there.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you can decide, hey, I ain't revealing none of that. Now if both people decide that, or skip over questions, you can't ask them questions later on.
Yes.
If you decide to skip over anything, don't bring it up later on. That way you get what? Understanding, because you had understanding in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the movie Casablanca, what did Ilsa Lund tell Rick Blaine? She said, remember, we agreed when we got together there would be no questions about our past at all. They both agreed on that.
Okay.
So he said, yeah, that is right. We did agree on that. See, that's the way it should be. You might decide there's not going to be no questions about our past. It's like our lives start right now here in this cafe booth while we're sitting here. We just met each other 15 minutes ago, and we kind of like each other. But it's one thing we're not going to ask. We're not going to ask no questions about our past if we get going. All right? Now, if you agree on that, stick with it. You can't bring up no questions later.
All righty. Okay. Okay, Mario, there you go. Let's see here. Let's do this. This is from, who is this from? Mrs. Gordon. Mrs. Gordon of the concept called Jamaica. She says this. This is Mrs. Gordon of the concept of Jamaica, formerly the concept of Memphis, Tennessee. I am happy to offer my VGQ to Mr. Fuller this morning for reading on, I guess it was last Tuesday's show. I hope I woke up this morning reading the code book and got so excited about this section which Mr. Fuller refuses to discuss the code on page 386. Let me turn to that right quick. I think I know what that is, but just to be sure. Wait a minute here, 386. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Definitely. Okay. All righty. And the top of the page 387, where it states, avoid speaking during those periods when great fear or destruction is being produced by all power. Jumping down to the part, quote, it is unjust and incorrect for a victim of racism to commit any act against any person when that person is being injured or killed by natural forces, or when that person is experiencing suffering as a result of these forces. It is just and correct for all people to try and help eliminate suffering during periods of famine, flood, epidemic, etc. Where it is not for those words, if it were not for those words of wisdom, I may have incorrectly gloated about the misery in the concept of Italy and America, because both places grew me into the love of violence via movies and music. I know to refrain from gloat because a large number of people gloating seems to change the tide of the judgment. And the next thing you know, mercy is given by the Most High before the forces complete the work. I could say more, Mr. Fuller, but I will stop here to refrain from boasting about the value the code has on my thinking. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Sincerely, Mrs. Gordon of Jamaica, formerly of the concept of Memphis, Tennessee. Now, there wasn't a question in there, but she was expressing, and she said VGQ of how this book on the code in the section that you don't like to discuss, she took heed to the suggestions and was happy to report that thank you for your words and suggestions that she not have gotten in trouble that she could have potentially got in, Mr. Fuller.
And that's in the 9th area of activity,
yes,
war,
sir.
counter-war, all right? But I put it there because we are in a war between those who believe in white supremacy and those who don't. But within the context of what we're going through now, this virus going around is very specific. Floods, forest fires, earthquakes, tsunamis, that type of thing, and viruses. They strike all people. These are acts of what most people call it acts of God or acts of the Creator. During those periods, you help the person that you see needs help the most, the person who is suffering from that. I don't care who it is, Ku Klux Klansman, everybody. No, if you see, the boat being washed down, and the person is screaming and yelling, and there's a flood going on, and the boat is turned over, and there's a Klansman and his family and whatnot, trying to stay in the boat, and you have an opportunity, you see an opportunity where you can be of some help, you run to them and try to help them. Why? Because that's what you would want done for you under those circumstances. Okay? There's a message being sent. It's a reason why you are there, and you witness that. That could be a test by your Creator to see how you will act, all right, when you have the advantage against someone who is completely helpless. That's the codified message that you take. The very fact that you are there, it means, okay, I'm presenting something. I'm putting you to a test. I'm going to see what type of mind you have for that world that you're thinking about that we should have after all of this is over, after everybody gets on the same correct and constructive page, if ever. All right? Because that's what we're supposed to be headed toward, a world of justice. So you help white people, black people, all kinds of people, male, female, people that you fell out with years ago. This virus going around, you help them. You help them. You give them all the help that you can possibly give without injuring yourself, because you have to help yourself first. Like I heard about somebody kind of famous just the other day, and they were trying to help someone else. They jumped into the water and trying to help someone else to swim out, but they couldn't swim very well themselves. So both of them drowned. So you first have to, as they say, put the life jacket on yourself. Now you're in position to help the other person. And you give that help. So you give the help that you can give. Throw them a rope or something, if you can. You see a rope nearby and you just stand there, all right? And you know that if you throw that rope, you can probably help someone who's out there in the water because you can't swim. Throw the rope as best you can, as many times as you can, until that rope reaches them, and they can grab hold to it. And then somebody should come and who spots this situation going on should come and help you under all of these kind of conditions. And this virus going around, help everybody that you can, because you just may be next week or tomorrow or before the day is over. That person that you refuse to help, now you're being wheeled in right alongside of them, because now you got it 30 minutes after they got it, while you were standing down there gloating of watching them being hauled into the ambulance and say, yeah, well, the virus got them. No better for that SOB or that MF. You know how we talk, I'll teach them, all right. What's that saying by John Donne? He said, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Now, what did that mean?
Yeah.
In the old days, when somebody died in the village, you would hear the bell tolling, like the church bell. That means that somebody died. So here's a person sitting up saying, I think that's old Rudolph down there in the village. Yeah, he's been sick, so that bell must be tolling for him. No, the bell could be tolling for you.
All righty. That concludes that That half hour, that was great. So we've come to that. Let's do this. As the music is in the background, you have been listening to, are listening to, the Counter Racist Code Show, also called the CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with this show, call 516-453-9921 and hit the number 1 button, or press it, whatever you want to do, and you will go to the top of the line, provided that Mr. Fuller is not answering or addressing by suggestions questions that have been offered either by phone or by VGQ. And if you don't even know what VGQ is, and we started off the program, or second on the program, someone asked a question about VGQ, then you would know what that is and how to respond to it and why Mr. Fuller does what he does and concerning that. And remember that everything that he suggests is also in a codified way, and you will hear that word codification or codify all throughout this program. Okay, again, 516-453-9921, hit the number 1 button, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Thank you for the listeners. I'm looking at the screen here, and quite a few listeners are on the line. Some are just listening, and that's good. That's all right. Okay, question for you, Mr. Fuller, from TWI. Says this: Dear Mr. Fuller, is Christianity the white man's religion? Please answer this question as directly as you can. Thank you.
Is Christianity the white man's religion?
That's what TWI has said.
The answer is no. If you're talking about the white supremacists, you can't be a Christian and be a white supremacist, even though the white supremacists will say that they are Christians, or white supremacists will say that they are Jews. The white supremacists will say that they are Hindus, Confucianists, all kinds of religions, Shintoists, on and on. The white supremacists will say anything as long as it will help them to practice white supremacy, because that is the religion of the white supremacists. The only religion that the white supremacists have is the religion of white supremacy, which is proven to be stronger than Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, and all of the other isms, tribal religions, of which there are many, many, many hundreds maybe. The system of white supremacy has proven to be the greatest and strongest religion ever to appear in recorded history. Now, I don't know about pre-recorded history, popular recorded history that came into fashion all over the world. I mean, so that people knew the original religion, whatever it was. The Hindus says their religion was the original religion, which may or may not be true. I don't know. But so far, here in 2020, there's been no proven religion stronger than the religion of white supremacy. Now, some people will say, how is white supremacy a religion? A religion is what? A strong belief backed up by action. The white supremacists are the only people who everything that they say that they do and believe in, they do it, all right? Everything that religion calls for, they do it right down to the wire, no exceptions. I mean, that's the only religion that I know of that's fully practiced. I've run into people who would make statements like, well, you know, I'm Catholic, but I don't practice it. How can you be something that you don't do? See, it comes down to the doing part. You know, you're a mechanic, an auto mechanic, but you don't fix cars. You're a doctor, but you don't cure people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you went to school to be a doctor to cure people. All right? You're a lawyer, but you don't go nowhere near no court and fight no cases, but you're a lawyer. No, that's not what. It's not truthful, and it's not logical. So if you say that you're a Christian, it means you practice Christianity. It's something you do, not just something you walk around talking about, telling people that's what you are. You got to be doing it. There are rules in Christianity. Do you follow all of them? Because every preacher I've ever heard say that if you don't follow them all, you ain't no Christian. But then they say also it ain't but one rule, basically. So since nobody's asked me what I heard that is, because I'm not going to get into that. But in order to be a Christian, it's just one thing you have to do. You don't have to do a lot of things. So I've been told, but I'm not going to get into that.
Okay. All righty. Let's see here. Who's on? Okay, here we go. All right. This is a question from Mr. Henry. It says this. Mr. Fuller, I hear you say that natural disasters could be caused by the Creator, but if white supremacy is the most powerful system, is it correct to think that white supremacy created the virus known as the coronavirus to maintain the system of white supremacy? We know of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. We also know there are still concerns about how AIDS came about. We also understand the need for white supremacy to control the population. So with this understanding, isn't it logical to believe that white supremacy created the coronavirus to control the population?
If the individual victim of racism has come to that conclusion, it is logical. Whatever in there, if the person who is asking the question, or the person who thinks that could be, then it's logical to make that conclusion. That's the United Independent way. And I'm saying that, yes, it's logical if a person thinks that it is a concocted disease. People said that about what? Ebola, about HIV, and it's aimed primarily, like if it's to the extent that the white supremacist has anything to do with anything that's detrimental. How do they usually do it? They have it affect a limited number of white people first, all right? That's to make it look like it's something that's not concocted by them. That's anything harmful. They usually run the first round, you might say, on white people. That's the way they usually do it. And then the real clobbering comes when it comes to non-white people. That's the pattern in the modern day. In all of the areas of activity. Like sometimes in economics, black people will say, well, the white supremacists, they take all the money and they do this and they got everything that's fine and, they got everything that's worth anything, and then what's left, they don't leave nothing for black people. Mm-hmm. And what the white supremacists will do is say it. Now, that's not true. And you say, well, it is true, because I see it all around me. Then what the white supremacists do, they walk you around the city and they show you a white person eating out of a garbage can. And then they'll go a few blocks and show you another one, and then another one, and then another one. But that's strategic thinking, all right? And it usually works, because a lot of black people will say, oh, man, I drive by in my limousine, man, and I got a white chauffeur. And I'm looking to the right and left, and I see these white dudes, man, and they laying on the sidewalk and got tents and whatnot and staggering around half high and all this. Man, freezing to death. And they white. And I'm black. And I got a white chauffeur. So what you talking about, some racism? But see, the white supremacists always have what they call the tokens, comparatively speaking. But when it comes to the black people, it's a whole ocean of black people for every white person who is going to be in dire conditions. All during the so-called Depression, years ago, those are white people lined up asking for apples. Mister, can you spare a dime?
Yes.
All right? But every white person knows, hey, I still don't want to be black. Because I know black people on average, with few exceptions. See, you always have the few exceptions, which the code calls showcasing.
Yes, sir.
See, the white supremacists are very skilled at doing that. They'll say, well, look at Oprah Winfrey. And then black people will chime in. Yeah, that's right. Look at Oprah Winfrey. Or look at this baseball player. Or that football player. Or that all those black movie stars. Man, they're living better than a whole bunch of white people. And you going to talk about some race problem, whatnot? But see, when you start doing the stats, doing the statistics worldwide, yeah, there's a race problem. Seriously, all right? No. I mean, if you're just going to use the showcasing and the white sacrifices, no. That's described in the book. That's a white supremacist technique for fooling people about what's really going on, because they make some things prominent and then they hide other things by the millions.
Okay. All righty. Gmail. Mr. Fuller, how can each individual victim of white supremacy who codifies everything harness the logic that came with the universe? As a result, use that power to dismantle and end the system of white supremacy with your suggestions?
My suggestions are simply my suggestions that point to universal logic, because walking is a logical process. If you want to get from one side of the street to the other by doing a thing called walking, using your legs, that's been proven to be successful. So you do the things that's been proven to be successful. That's the logic of the universe. You find the thing that works and get rid of all the things that don't work. See, black people have a way of latching on to things that we know won't work, like armed robbery on the street. I mean, and thinking that we're going to retire in Florida. You're going to retire, all right. You keep that up. Street robbery. I'm a street robber, all right? And I go out and rob somebody about every 3 days. Now, that's a career. That's a job. And for longevity, that's not logical. How long can you do that before something real ugly happens to you that you didn't want to happen? Just how long? So you got to think about, how long can I keep this up? How long can I outrun helicopters, all right, and barking dogs, which might be the scenario about my fourth time out doing some street robbery. See, because you don't know what's going to happen. It's a very unpredictable choice of career. See, that's a career choice, okay? If you're figuring on doing it more than once. You do it more than once, I mean, now you are in a career, because you'll be tempted to do it a third time and a fourth time. So anybody who's ever gone into that type of business, because that's a business. Street robbery is a business, just like any other business. You make your investment, and then you go out and get some good running shoes and whatnot, and you make some plans, just like a business plan, and you rob people on the street. But the record for street robbery shows that the person who has gone into that type of business hasn't fared too well, to use one expression. And in answer to the question, you do the same thing when it comes to anything. How do you do it? You study what works and what doesn't, and always go with what works. And sometimes, like in the case of counter-racism, you have to do it by trial and error, just like any inventor does. No one has invented counter-racism yet. We're all in the process. I'm in the process of trying to do that. But if I was asked, Fuller, are you a counter-racist? I have to say no. Why? Because I haven't countered racism. That's why. They say, well, okay. Are you trying to? Yeah, I'm trying to, but trying ain't the same thing as doing it. Why? Because racism is still here.
Still here, yes, sir. All righty. Before we talk about your book, I'm going to take this call right now. I am going to go to James. James, you're live on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, gentlemen. I have a question for Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller,
yes,
can you provide irrefutable, factual proof that the creator you referenced earlier during this current broadcast desires victims of white supremacy to aid in the rescue of races such as the Ku Klux Klan to prevent the loss of their life? If your answer is yes, will you please ask that creator to speak those words for himself, herself, or itself at this time so that everyone listening to this program can get that information directly from the source? Thank you, sir.
All right, James. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, wow. I really didn't get that question.
James, you still there?
That's my fault.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wait
yes,
a minute. Mr. Fuller
said
he did. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
The question was so long.
I can repeat the question.
Sometimes I can't pick up on a long. That is my fault, really. You know.
Okay. I read it.
It's difficult for me to follow a long question.
Okay.
That's my fault. I should be able to follow a question. I don't care how long it is.
I'll put it short. If the creator you referenced earlier during this program would desire for the victims of racism to come to the aid of a white supremacist who's about to be destroyed, for example, by the coronavirus or a storm or a hurricane, anything, if that creator will want a victim of white supremacy to save that person, can you please ask the creator to please express that himself, herself, or itself so we won't have any doubt that there's irrefutable proof that that's what the creator would like for a victim of white supremacy, would like for a person to do.
Yeah, here again, that's a very, very long question. But, I mean, you know, it winds and weaves, I mean, in such a way.
In other words, sir, can you prove that the creator will want a victim of white supremacy to do that? Because to me, it doesn't make logical sense. And, you know, I respect your right.
Let's stop right there so that I can deal with that so we don't keep going on and on. Would the creator want me to help save a white person who I know or believe is a racist?
I didn't say you. I said a victim of white supremacy, not just you.
Is that the question? I'm trying to get the question.
Yes, sir, a victim of white supremacy.
Would the creator want me to save from death and destruction a white person who, say, has the virus or something, and I have an opportunity just to let that white person die or live.
I said a racist, not a white person, sir.
Yes, a white supremacist. Would the Creator want me to save that person? Is that a part of the question?
I'm not speaking specifically about you, Mr. Fuller. I'm talking about
anybody.
Any other racist.
Anybody.
Yes, sir.
I get the question. See, I'm trying to get the question, sir. See, that's it's my fault, but I have to have the question in a.
Based on what you have explained to us, sir, about counter-racist science, you said it has to be exact.
Yes.
So, therefore, when it comes to something like that, a person doesn't need to do any guessing. They need to know of 100% surety that if a creator even exists, if that creator exists, they need to know 100% of a surety that that's what creator would want. Because that same white supremacist someone may save may put a noose around their neck the following day. So that's something that everybody who's listening to this program needs to understand. Now, if the creator says it, if the creator can step forward or speak for himself, herself, or itself, the best way to know that is for the creator to say those things himself, herself, or itself. Otherwise, we're guessing.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Is that it? Okay.
Yes, sir.
You asked a question and then you made a suggestion. I think that's where I got lost. Okay, so here's what. Like everything else in codification, it's up to the individual. That's the answer. See, I was trying to listen very carefully to everything being said, every word. So the answer to that, according to the code, is just what I say about everything.
Oh, okay.
United independent. The individual person makes that decision, him or herself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, I just made a suggestion according to the code.
Oh, as a suggestion, I respect that.
Yes.
But, you know,
well, that's what I'm saying.
But
see, that's
can I say something, Mr.
by you making a suggestion, that suggestion is valid. Why? Under VGQ. See, that's the beauty of VGQ. See, it's
Absolutely.
that way, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying because I'm prohibited from doing that. Okay. You put that on the table. So everybody who's listening, take that for what it's worth to them because that's the way the code works. You just codified something. So you qualified, you added a qualification to what I had presented by saying, wait a minute, there are some circumstances where, and what if and whatnot. So you presented that. Your presentation as a suggestion, which is what it sounded like, is valid and should be taken into consideration by everybody who just heard it.
And that's the reason why I said what I said, because I want people to take that into consideration. We also take into consideration.
Yes.
We need to consider.
Okay, hold it. Let's take. Wait a minute, sir. Let's take one thing at a time. I did take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Before I wrote what I wrote, I just want to answer that question before we move to another question. All right.
Yeah.
Can I just make one statement?
Wait a minute. Let me finish. I did fully take that into consideration before I put it down in the book. And I concluded that that's something that I would do, even knowing that the very next day, that same white supremacist would show up at a lynching, and I was the one to be lynched. And he was the one to put the noose around my neck.
Okay.
All right.
Would that be constructive for you or that person?
No, it wouldn't be constructive, but it's a decision.
Why do it then?
Because I think that I was put there at that time, and I gave the reason prior to that, as a test That's just my choice. That's why I made a suggestion like that.
Got to leave it there,
gentlemen. Wait a minute. Let me finish, sir. Because you asked a question. I'm trying to get the audience to hear the answer to the question that I'm giving. That's a choice that I would make based on what I think I should do. But if a person wants to say, I won't do that, then that's a choice that that person makes. See, everything in the code is merely a suggestion to be taken or rejected. Everything. And what you are saying may be the better course. Let the person go that don't help anybody who you suspect might be a racist doing this virus thing going around.
Okay, I have to cut it, gentlemen. I have to cut it. Gentlemen, I have to cut it right here. James, thank you so much for your call.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right,
okay, all righty. Lola, I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to get to you because we are running out of time. But Lola, if you are still listening, call me back or call the show next week, and we'll try to get you on. As a matter of fact, Lola, and you know who you are. Go if you call in first. Well, no matter where you call in, if I see you up on the screen, I'll go ahead and put you up first because you were waiting. Mr. Fuller, we have about 3 minutes, and we have already gone past the time that we need to discuss your book. So I want to make sure I get that in. So go ahead, please, sir, and discuss your book.
You go to the book. Go to the website, producejustice.com. producejustice.com. And the book is called The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And just to tell you how important that title is, which is explained in the book, we just gave an example. That conversation I just had with the previous caller was ragged. It really was, by codified standards. And I am to blame for it being ragged. Reason being, once I saw that a suggestion was being made, I failed in my duty to go directly to VGQ and stick with it, because that's one of the most important things that the book is supposed to have, and that is, it's never supposed to be an argument about racism between victims of racism. Not ever. Not for 5 minutes, not for 3 seconds. Never, ever. I don't care how it gets started. It's never supposed to happen. And it's not even supposed to happen like there's a disagreement, because I can't disagree with the caller. That's prohibited. I cannot disagree with him for anything that he says about race, racism, or counter-racism. And conversely, in a compensatory way, he can't disagree with me. That's the magic of VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification. It automatically prohibits that happening. So I hope it didn't sound like an argument or even a disagreement, because that can't happen. There's no disagreement. It's just a difference in points of view. That's all. Different suggestions. Standing alone. He can't criticize mine. I can't criticize his. That's the beauty of it. Because, why? Because black people think they're making progress when they argue. And that has been proven to never happen. That never happens at all. I mean, that's just an argument that goes nowhere. And the white supremacists love it. They thrive off of it. So that part of the code, that's the main part of the code. That's why it's called United Independent. We're united in what we're trying to do, theoretically, but we are independent in the way that we think, speak, and act and go about doing it. And that is something that the white supremacists have no defense against. Because if we're standing around looking for agreement, it ain't going to happen. All right? That ain't going to happen no way.
Well, the good thing,
you agree with yourself.
Right.
That's the United Independent way. Go to producejustice.com.
The good thing about that is that it did come at the end of the program, and you made clarification as to what happened, and hopefully the viewers or listeners rather heard that exchange and learned something for that. Okay, you've been listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and Lord willing, we will see you next week, or at least hear from you. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, technicians. Moon Pie, got you on here. All that. We'll see you next week. Everybody, God bless.
Thank you.